Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I just want to give a little bit of a shout out to this amazing channel first, because they have literally given me the kick up the bum just to get me started doing these crime channels, because I've been watching them for a little bit now and I just think she called somebody else a queen. I'm going to call her a queen. I just love it. Her name is Danielle Kirsty, and honestly, if you don't follow her, go and subscribe. Honestly, she's unreal. But yeah, Danielle is honestly watching her channel over the last couple of weeks. I've wanted to do this crime one for so long, and just watching her just for the last couple of weeks, it's gave me the little kick up the bum for me to do this. So massive big love to Danielle. You're a queen, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I just want to let you know that tonight's episode, it's a content warning, because we are discussing the murders of two 10-year-old little girls. So just a little warning. So it was in so it's a little small town in Cambridgeshire, here in the UK. And two little girls, two friends, left a house to go and buy some sweets, but unfortunately those two little girls didn't come home, and it literally boils my blood every time I think about it. They left Holly's house to go to the shop to get sweets, and they never came home. And their names are Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. So tonight's episode is about the Soho murders. And obviously neither girl would ever make it home, which is, oh, it's so sad. And what followed would become one of the biggest missing child investigations Britain had ever seen. Like, I think it was the biggest I'd ever seen. Thousands and thousands of people all searched for Holly and Jessica. The faces appeared on every television screen, newspaper front pages, right across the country, and I'm guessing across the world. If I'm pretty certain it did. And the man that appeared to be helping, he was in they used the school, with it only being like a little community. They had a school, and they used the school for where they done the press releases and stuff like that. And he was the caretaker of the school, and you could see him running around and having interviews with the police and having interviews with television news people, and he was eventually it was eventually revealed that it was him who actually done the two murders, which actually knocks me sick. I hate him. No. But obviously, before I dive into their story, before we talk, I want to. Their names aren't just. They're not just a headline. They were little girls with families who loved and adored them. They had friends who absolutely loved and adored them. They should have had a future stretched out for years and years ahead of them, and it's so sad. And one picture became literally, you'd mention their name and that picture would instantly come to mind, and it was when they were in Holly's house having a barbecue, and they stood in front of underneath the clock. Sorry, they were standing and there was a clock above them, and they were both wearing matching Man United football tops. And I'm pretty certain it was Jessica borrowed Holly's brother's Man United top, because they obviously wanted to match. Bless them. And they did. They had a gorgeous photo, and it's just so sad that photo was the very last photo where they'd actually been seen alive. And like I say, that picture is one of the most recognisable pictures. If you type in Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman, probably that will be the first picture that comes up. And I'm guessing, well, you wouldn't. Anybody looking at that photo at that time never imagined what was literally around the corner waiting for them. It makes me sick. Makes me sick. Makes my skin crawl. It just knocks me sick them two beautiful little girls went to buy sweets and never came home. So Soham was a relatively small little neighbourhood where everybody kind of knew the neighbours, and when two children disappeared, like literally the whole community all come together and obviously all search for the little girl. And how it started was they'd gone to Holly's house, I think it was, for a barbecue, and they wanted to go and buy sweets. And that's what they done. They went to the little shop around the corner. They weren't expected to be gone for too long. But they never came home. And at around 8 p.m, I think that's when people started getting concerned. Like, they should have been way home by now. That's when they were reported missing. And that's when the police began their search. And at first there was still hope there. You know, obviously even I used to say, I remember, you know, I used to say to Tony, they're together, they'll be fine. They've probably just wandered off. The best friends, they probably just wandered off somewhere, and this is what the police were saying. They were together, and I know when Holly and Jessica's mum and dad, the mums and dad, both done a press release, they were happy that they were together, because obviously nothing can happen to them when they're together. You know, what could seriously happen to them? They're together. You know, perhaps they'd wandered off further than expected. Perhaps people had seen them. Perhaps they would be found and they'd be okay. But obviously as the night grew into early hours of the morning, that hope started to fade. And, you know, I even questioned it. Like, are they okay? Like, there was no sign of them running away from home. They were both from happy homes. They'd never done anything like this before. They were absolutely beautiful girls, and you know, they'd never run away from home before. This was so out of character for them. The search for them literally went huge, and rightly so as well. I think anybody and everybody who could was in Soham. I don't think that little town has ever seen massive crowds like the way it did them first few nights. And the police were joined with thousands of volunteers, literally thousands and thousands. Their photo was absolutely everywhere, on posters, in the newspaper, on television, the news. I remember I was watching Sky News constantly for updates on them, because how can just two 10-year-old little girls just suddenly just disappear? It just doesn't happen. My heart literally went out to Holly's and Jessica's families, because that must have been horrific. Like, at first you'd be thinking, it's okay, they're together, they're okay. And then for the days and days and days to go on and on and on, and there's no sightings of them. It must have been horrific for them. Like, I couldn't even imagine it. Like, I could not imagine it. Like, the roads were getting examined, fields, waterways, surrounding areas, literally everywhere. And for 13 days, it was on Sky News constantly, and I'll always remember I was watching it constantly. And for 13 days, it was on Sky News, and I was glued to Sky News. And I'm guessing I weren't the only one in Britain who was literally waiting for an update on these little girls. And like I said in the intro, there was one man who couldn't do enough for people. In them 13 days, he was running around and helping people, and he just couldn't do enough for people. Getting chairs for people and putting chairs out, and obviously he was the school caretaker. Literally couldn't do enough for people, and that was Ian Huntley. I just don't even like saying his name, guys. It just makes me sick. So yeah, like I said, he was the caretaker of Soham College, and he lived in the little cottage that came with that job, and he lived there with us girlfriend, Maxine Carr. She worked actually as a teaching assistant, and she knew Holly and Jessica really, really well. She even appeared on camera with cards that Holly and Jessica had both made for her at the end of term in the July. She was wearing a football shirt as well. It was an England shirt, if I can remember correctly. It was an England top. But yeah, the girls made her a card, and she had an interview with Sky News, and she was proudly showing off these cards that the girls had made. They didn't think she was going to get the job because she was a teaching assistant. It wasn't permanent, and I don't think she was getting took back on. So the girls made it a sad card to say that they were sorry to see her leave. And like I said, that Ian Huntley, he couldn't do enough to help. He had an interview, and then it came about he was the last person to see them girls alive. Apparently they walked past his cottage, but Maxine was in Grimsby apparently with an old boyfriend, and there's been a lot of speculation. Was that the reason why he did what he did? Because he was angry because she was with another man, maybe in Grimsby. I don't know. He appeared on television and he was, saying, "Oh yeah, they were in good spirits when they walked past here," and then they just went off on their merry little way. To me and to everybody else watching, he was just another member of the public wanting and praying for Holly and Jessica to come home safe. He wasn't like just detached or in any way. He was just normal. Literally, you would not have thought 13 days prior he'd have done what he'd done to be acting this cool. Like, to me, that proves that there's a screw loose. He's not effing right in the head, and it just makes me so angry that for somebody like him to be working in a school with kids, how? But obviously the investigators quickly soon realised that he wasn't just a member of the public trying to help. He wasn't, and I'm so glad that they got onto that. So as the investigation rolled on, detectives began monitoring people's movements who were around at that time, of the people who've been in the area. And obviously he was there all the time. The police started finding inconsistencies with in his accounts. His movements were examined, his statements were checked, and investigators began looking at his relationship with Maxine Carr as well. And his first lie was that he hadn't been alone that weekend, for all that weekend, that Maxine had been with him the whole time. But obviously when they looked into that, they found out that she was actually in Grimsby when the girls had gone missing. So even though she does get a charge, she wasn't actually there when the girls got murdered. She covered it up for him, which is, to me, she might as well have been there with him. But this is how the police become to realise that he was telling lies, and that was his first lie, pretty much. So given somebody who just murdered two little girls an alibi, I don't care who you are. You could be my son. Now, my son's 31, my son's my world. If I knew he's even assaulted another woman, an adult woman, I'd be dragging his ass to the police. Never mind your boyfriend murdering two little girls and you create an alibi for him. What the hell? No. And then obviously, because this lie didn't add up and that lie didn't add up, he soon became the police's #1 suspect. And then obviously 13 days after the girls went missing, The search took a devastating turn. Horrific. The 2 bodies were discovered at the RAF Lake and Heath in Suffolk, and after dental checks, etc., and forensic examinations, the bodies did turn out to be Holly and Jessica, which I think the whole of the UK were in mourning with that poor families. With their, I mean, who would even imagine 2 little girls going to the shop to buy sweets, and now they're found at an RAF base, murdered? The search for the girls was over, but literally this was just the beginning for Holly's and Jessica's family. This was the beginning of every parent's worst nightmare. This was the beginning for them. And police needed to answer just one question. Who have murdered these 2 little girls? Who have murdered these 2 little babies? These 2 10-year-old little babies who'd gone to the shop to buy sweets? Like, they needed to find out instantly. And Ian Huntley and Maxine Carr were arrested on the 17th of August. So the girls went missing on the 4th of August, and then them 2 rats were arrested the 17th of August. Huntley was questioned about the girls, and Carr's false alibi would actually become a major part of the investigation. So investigators began reconstructions and stuff like that, like of the girls, of their final movements and what had happened during them crucial hours on the 4th of August. And the investigation would eventually establish The investigation would eventually establish a case against Huntley for their murders. So when all this come about, what I couldn't understand, I can't wrap my head around. He worked in a school. He's got a rap sheet as long as you can imagine. He raped women. He was done for sexual assault. He was done for raping people. It goes on. Domestic violence. He was done for literally being a bully towards women. How the hell was he allowed to work in a school with children? How? And the answer actually would lead to one of the most important investigations to follow ever. So the Bishard inquiry came about after Huntley's conviction. Right, let me think. I don't want to do this any justice. So the conviction, serious concerns emerged about information that police and other agencies had previously held about him. So the Bishard inquiry examined the failures surrounding intelligence, vetting and information sharing. So the official inquiry found that Huntley had been investigated over several allegations in the 90s, including SA, multiple. The inquiry also recorded that he had applied for a caretaker's job at Soham Village College in October of 2001 and began working there before the vetting process had been completed. Why? If he'd have got vetted properly, them little girls now would probably be married with their own children. The Wells and the Chapmans probably would have extended family. They'd have grandchildren from these girls. It just makes me so angry, guys. It literally makes me so angry. But it wasn't when it did meet, it wasn't connected. He wasn't connected to any of these other crimes that he'd done in another part of the town or in another city. So he was jumping around places, and that's how we got away with it. And that literally became one of the biggest lessons of this entire case. And rightly so. Them little girls would still be alive if if it had been vetted properly. And then in November, excuse me, in November 2003, Ian Huntley went on trial in the Old Bailey. And of course he denied murdering Holly and Jessica. Of course he did. So it just makes me angry, guys. Sorry, I got all worked up. But yeah, the prosecution presented its case. The evidence was examined. Witnesses were heard. And the country waited for the verdict. I mean, literally glued to that TV. Literally glued. And he was found guilty of the murder of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. And he received 2 life sentences with a minimum term tariff of 40 years. So you see, if this was in America, our law is shit. Our law is on the bottom of your foot. America, he'd have been in prison for life forever, would never have got out, never have seen the light of day. Our judicial system, shit. He got 40 years for killing two 10-year-old little girls. How's that justice? That is not justice. But justice was about to be had. This bit makes me happy. But before I get to that, Maxine Carr got 3.5 years for perverting the course of justice. 3.5 years. She was out in a year and a bit. That is not justice. She knew what he'd done. She knew exactly what he'd done. She washed all the bedding. She said she'd made a roast. She went straight down to the nitty-gritty of what she'd cooked that day. Yeah, 3.5 years. BS. Full-on BS. When Ian Huntley actually did get found guilty, there was this story that he'd come up with that Holly, or one of the girls, had gone into the house because she had a nosebleed, and as he turned around to get some paper towel for her, he knocked her and one of the girls into the bath, and when she fell into the bath, she banged her head, and with that, the other girl was screaming, so he put his hand over her mouth to shut her up, pretty much, and she stopped moving, and then he'd done the same to the other one, but no. So the 7 murders did actually change Britain. It did. It shouldn't have got to this for it to be changed. I'm going to read this off because I don't want to get it wrong. So the Bichard inquiry made recommendations about how police intelligence should be recorded and shared, and about vetting and people working with children, obviously. Like, he should never ever have been anywhere near a school, for 1. For 2, I'm trying to think of the words I'm trying to say. I don't want to swear on here, but it just makes me angry when I think about how an evil prick of a monster can work with kids in a school when you've got that background of violence. But yeah, the inquiry's findings became an important foundation for later changes to safeguards and vetting arrangements, and the government subsequently described the vetting and barding system as having been developed following recommendations from the Bichard inquiry. This all stemmed from Holly and Jessica, so even though it's shit that what happened to them, it was the worst thing that happened to them, something kind of good has come out of it. Like, they've left a legacy, if that makes sense. But obviously, no change in that positive. No change in that positive. Oh my God, why can't I speak? That's because I know stands on there. No change in policy could undo what he actually done to them 2 little girls. 2 10-year-old girls have been taken from their families, and obviously bringing these new changes in, they shouldn't have to be brought in after something like this. They should be there anyway. Like, if you murder a child in America, you get done life, and life means life. Capital murder.
you get put on death row. But in 2026 anyway, this is the best bit. There is one final chapter to this story. I didn't want it to happen, but it did. And I'll tell you why I didn't want it to happen. Ian Huntley, he remained in prison after his conviction. But on 26th of February 2026, Huntley was seriously assaulted at HMP Frankland, which was great. He was taken to hospital with severe injuries, but he died sadly on the 7th of March 2026, age 52. Now I'll tell you why I didn't want him to die. He got hit over the head with like a made hatchet, whatever they make in prison. They hit him over the head with it. If he was to survive, he would have, when he woke up, he would have been blind. How amazing would that have been? Now, this isn't the only time he's been attacked in prison. He's been attacked in prison multiple times. And the time, it was a man called Anthony Russell. And I'll tell you why he done it. He done it because Huntley was walking around the prison wearing a Man United football shirt. Like, that's what he murdered the girls in. But yeah, he died after that prison assault. And Anthony Russell has been charged with Huntley's murder. Leave him alone, he's fine. But if he had woken up from the coma, he would have been blind. He would have had disabilities. So it would have been great. Thank you. It would have been great for him to have woke up. Like, it would have been so good. Because, like I said, this wasn't his only time he got attacked. He'd been attacked multiple times. But anyway, those proceedings remain active, and Russell has the right to a fair trial. And the Crown Prosecution Service has specifically warned against commentary that could prejudice these proceedings. So you can't really find anything on that yet. But if it does, and when it does, I'll definitely be doing a story on it. But for this story, the focus should never, ever, ever be on Ian Huntley. Ever. Should never be on his death, ever. The focus should always remain on Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. Always. It should always be on them little girls. It should never, ever remain on Ian Huntley died. No. Holly and Jessica were 10 years old. 10. They were babies. They were tiny little girls. They should have grown up together. They should have gone to secondary school. They should have been excited about starting the brand new year at school in the September. They should have made new friends when they went to secondary school. They should have had birthdays, holidays, first loves, and eventually lives of their own. But all of those moments have literally been cruelly taken from them, all because of a horrible, horrible demon of a person. I wouldn't even call him an animal, because animals are lovely. Animals are lovely. But for the families, there would never be another ordinary Sunday. There'd never be an ordinary barbecue. They'd only ever be memories now. And the question of what their lives might have become. The Sower murders shocked Britain. It really did shock Britain. It changed policing, changed safeguarding, and it changed the way information about people working with children has been handled. And like I keep saying, it should never have come to the thought of 2 little girls have been killed, so we're gonna do it differently. No, it should have been changed then. For the families, it's a cruel, cruel world now that they're living in. But I said, but beyond all the charges and beyond the headlines, beyond the courtroom, there were 2 little girls. At the end of the day, there was 2 little girls, Holly and Jessica. 2 best friends who should never be forgotten. It's sad. It's so sad. But yeah. Anyway, that's my take on that. So if there is a case out there that you want me to cover, put it in the comment section and I'll do my best to cover it. I'm gonna do a video, maybe upload a video once or twice a week. I just want to do them justice, because, you know, they are real. Like I said, they are real people. They're not just names. They're not, you know, they're more than a headline. They're two little girls at the end of the day. But yeah, if there is a case out there that you want me to cover, just give me a shout and leave it in the comments and let me know. And thank you all for watching. And stay safe, everyone, and I'll see you all in the next one.